Today I'm going to show you how to extract honey from the honey supers, and this is a great thing to use, and it's just a piece of cardboard. Honey is a mess. You get one drop on a doorknob and everything's sticky, and you get one drop on the floor and everything's slippery. So this will make your cleanup a lot better if you just put a piece of cardboard down, and I'm going to set up some boxes and I can put my frames in after I've extracted them. So what I have here is just a box. Now you can spend a lot of money and actually purchase beekeeping equipment, or you can just buy a tub and you can actually put a nail through a piece of wood, and that helps hold your frame, and that way you can just cut off the cappings of on your frames. So I want to make this pretty clear. I know sometimes we get people that ask us, about how to extract honey and how do you know the honey is ready to be taken off and such. And so on this frame here, I like it. Some people might say it's not totally sealed off down here, and my thought is that the bees were probably ready to cap it off. They've capped it off here. But just to be safe, I have had it a couple of days in a drying room, essentially a room with a dehydrator in it, dehumidifier, and there's not a lot of honey in there. So this one is going to be a little more difficult because it's kind of wavy, and so I'll show you. So what I do is this nail, I don't really poke it real hard, it just goes in there and kind of stabilizes it, plop. And then I just take a cold knife out of the kitchen. I don't like to use the hot knives. You can, they're fine, I've used them for years. But the hot knife, the thermostats aren't outstanding on them, and it starts to kind of caramelize the honey, and so it makes it a different flavor. It's good honey, but I don't like that burnt taste. And I'm going to save all the cappings. I'm going to get the honey out of the cappings, but simply just start by opening up the cap. So some of you are brand new to beekeeping, and I want to make sure you understand what I'm doing here. The bees bring in nectar into these cells here. Nectar is high in water content. It is almost like water. Once that nectar gets in here, the bees begin to fan it and dry it. When it reaches about 18% moisture level, the bees produce wax from their wax glands, and then they cap it off just like you do when you're canning. You can something, cook it, put it in a canning jar, you put a lid on it. They put a lid or a wax seal on top of the cells once they dried out by fanning their wings, so that no more water will be drawn into the honey. So this is nectar, and once they dry it, it's honey. So we're opening the cans up, so to speak. We're just opening the tops of the sealed cells with our knife, and that way this will bring about all the honey that allows us to spin it out in our extractor. There's really no easy way to do it. Again, a cold knife works very nicely. Now, I like to save all this wax that I'm producing here, or cutting, because I'll use that to coat my frames to get them a little better pull on new foundation. So, what I do now, you can see there's parts of it that aren't very open because of that little groove right there, and I just take a scratcher. Now these work better than a fork out of the kitchen. They're really pointy, and I just simply take this and I begin to scratch open. See how that tears open the caps on top of these places that my knife didn't reach, right? Okay. And then you just spin it around and do the other side. And if you've got a frame that's really drawn out a lot, and some people prefer 9 frames because those frames sometimes get pulled out wider than if you have 10 frames, then it's a lot easier to cut the caps off. So I use the wood on the frame to kind of give me a guide. I put my blade on the wood unless it's really thick, drawn out. Okay, I've got most of them opened up here, and now I'll use my scratcher to scratch open the rest. And that one's ready. And I'll put it in my extractor. And some of you might have more elaborate extracting systems. We're using this one for demonstration purpose. I just simply set it in here. And so that you'll know, again, I understand that some of you really don't know up from down about this, but what we're going to be doing is spinning it really fast. Centrifugal force will pull out the wax, or I'm sorry, the honey from that frame. So we'll just set it in there for now. Let's get one more going. Okay. Okay, this is another frame that might be a little more difficult to open. Let's see. You can see, oh no, it's going to be good. So I've got my wax. Might be safer if you're using a knife. Don't cut your fingers. Make sure that you know where your fingers are at all times. Might be safer to cut down away from your body, away from the other hand. And you can see how I'm just cutting open the wax cappings. But I'm kind of running out of room. It's not as deep as I wanted it. It's not as pulled out. So I'll have to use my scraper. Okay, very good. And go to the other side, which is kind of a little different. There's not a lot of honey. There's some pollen here, and this is mostly dry. But I want what's on the other side. I'm just going to use my scraper here. It's just going to be easier for me to scrape that little portion open. Okay. You put this in your extractor. And once you get everything in, position. Then you want to put your plastic lids on if you have a small extractor like this. And by the way, this little extractor, there's no need to go crazy and buy the best and the biggest. A little extractor like this really will go a long way. So now we're just letting the honey flow out of the extractor through a strainer on top of a 5-gallon bucket. And that way it gets all the little wax particles out. And it makes a real pure product. I use about a 400 micron filter, and that's about all you need really to. And it's really not filtering. I like to think of it as straining, so you have a real raw product.